Now we're going to move on to the biggest bust of a player for the season. There are always players out there who have high ceilings preseason that just don't live up to their capabilities per se. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I got to go Baker Mayfield. And not just this season, like you said, a lot of players have high ceilings we expect, and we keep expecting it from him. I mean, it's been every season we're expecting him to have this breakout. We keep including him in those conversations about the best young quarterback talent in the NFL, and he's just not living up to it. This season, he only played 14 games, but in those games, 27th in QBR, 27th in completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 13 picks. Those numbers just are not going to lead your team to success. And Cleveland has a really good football team. They have a lot of components that can allow them to compete. Yeah, they're in a tough division, but, you know, a lot of teams are. That's the way the NFL works, and they have to find a way to elevate his play because I don't see the Browns moving on from him. But you look at other guys in that same range of performance, Taylor Heineke, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, they're all either right above or below him. And all those teams are the ones we're talking about targeting quarterbacks this offseason. He's got the intangibles, but he's just not performing. He's never had 4,000 pass yards in a season. He's never had 30 touchdowns. I don't think Baker Mayfield can be above average in this league.
I would have to agree with that statement. I do think they need some help on the edge when it comes to wide receivers. You know, Odell, we obviously said wasn't a really good fit. You know, congrats to Odell for being on the Super Bowl team, but Jarvis Landry is, in my opinion, past his prime. So they don't have a lot of options out there to throw the ball to. I think Baker Mayfield is a gunslinger type quarterback. He's going to have turnovers. I do think they have could be the best running game in the NFL when both running backs stay healthy. Their defense is stout. They've been stout for a while. They're built to win the championship on the defensive side of the ball. But like we mentioned earlier, this is a quarterback league. If you don't have a good quarterback, you're not going to be in any contention for a championship.
All right, so I'm going to have to take the opposite argument here, and I think Baker got a bad rap. I think media has always been they don't like his antics. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's just been had some unfortunate situations. You know, he's clearly hurt this year, playing through some injuries, as all good leaders do. You know, can't make any excuses, try and play through it. But then he also loses one of his best short down opportunities or checkdowns in Kareem Hunt for almost the entire year. We know the whole saga with him and OBJ and how there was just clearly no relationship there, and you know, and Jarvis Landry missed some games. So I think they definitely got to get him some help. Because I agree with Jacob, they're not going to move on from him because I think, you know, the infamous jersey with all the quarterback names, starting with Tim Couch, you know, I think they're finally past that. So I think Baker is their guy for at least the next few years, but I think they just got to get him some help. And, you know, if they stay healthy, Chubb and Hunt, they are the two-headed dragon. I mean, that's one of the best offensive rushing attacks in the league when they're at full force. So Baker just needs some help.
Well, Dave, you seem to like Baker Mayfield. Who did you not like this season?
So this one, it's a stretch. I know it's a stretch, but you know, going into all my fantasy drafts, I had high hopes for this kid. I'm going with Trey Sermon for the 49ers. You know, he's a third-round draft pick out of, you know, the Ohio State University. You know, they've produced some big-name running backs here in the past few years. And, you know, him going to the 49ers, them investing a high-round pick for him, you know, he was going to be behind Raheem Mostert coming into the league. But I thought this kid was just going to come in. We all know the 49ers offense is run, run, run. They're probably the most run-heavy team in the league. And I was like, you know, it seems like every game the 49ers, Shanahan loves giving the ball to someone different. And I thought this guy's going to come in and just dominate. So, I mean, I invested a couple draft picks in him in some of my different fantasy leagues. But just listen to his last 3 games at Ohio State here. So, granted, this is COVID year, so maybe not facing the best competition, but going against a 2-5 Michigan State, he had 10 carries for 112 yards and a tutty. And the Big Ten championship against number 10 Northwestern, 29 carries, 331 yards, and 2 scores. And the college football semifinal against Clemson, 31 carries for 193, and he had 4 catches for 60. I mean, the last 2 games, I mean, you're talking the Big Ten championship, guaranteed to go to the playoff, and then you're playing against Clemson. Not playing against duds. I mean, the guy is good. Gets 3rd-round pick, and then you're going to tell me that he gets beat out by Elijah Mitchell, who's a 6th-rounder out of Louisiana. I mean, that right there just tells me, man, he just busted. I mean, Elijah Mitchell, I mean, no offense to him, he had a great rookie campaign, but he, before the season started, I would have thought Trey Sermon would have had Elijah Mitchell, and Elijah Mitchell would have had Trey Sermon. I mean, Elijah Mitchell had 963 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, and Trey Sermon had 41 for 167 yards and a touchdown. I mean, I think that right there, just the landscape completely flipped for a guy that probably thought he was going to be the dude after Monster went down in week 1.
Yeah, I had Elijah Mitchell in a lot of my fantasy teams. Had a very, very good season. To be quite honest with you, the Trey Sermon, I didn't even ever see his name pop up on stat sheets. Like he was just non-existent at some point. I guess that's a credit to maybe Elijah Mitchell carrying the load, Deebo Samuel getting a more revolutionized role as a wide receiver / running back. Deebo is an unbelievable talent. But for me personally, we're all 3 big fantasy football league players. We play in our own fantasy league. We take it extremely serious. But every year, you see the same names pop up at the top, and this name has popped up at the top, since he's been in the league, and that is Christian McCaffrey. It's not necessarily all his fault, but he's always been, usually your number 1 overall draft pick. He is pretty much the Carolina Panthers offense. He's pretty much their whole team. But injuries are piling up on him. He's been there for 5 years. He's only played in 10 games the last 2. Just 6 touchdowns rushing, 667 yards in 2 seasons. But he's a great running back, but he's not a primary runner. They love using him in the passing game. But even then, he's had 2 receiving touchdowns the last 2 seasons and only 492 receiving yards. That's just, to me, I know it's an injury thing, but you want to see a guy with that talent stay healthy long term. And maybe it's a usage issue. Maybe the Carolina Panthers are like, hey, we got to use this guy, and it's their fault that he's getting injured all the time. But he is definitely the biggest bust, at least the last 2 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I've had a lot of stock in Christian McCaffrey in the fantasy world, and it's really just, disappointing. You feel bad for the guy because he's such a likable player, such a good work ethic. Kid gives everything he's got, and unfortunately, that body's broke down on him, and I think a lot of that is because of the usage he's had. Like you said, I mean, he was an every down back. There were projections that he was 100 catch running back. That was a number that was realistic for him, but it's just hard for running backs to stay healthy in the NFL nowadays. I mean, we've seen that this year. We've already touched on Kareem Hunt. We've already touched on Derrick Henry. I mean, it's just such a physical game that these guys struggle to maintain their health year over year, especially when they're getting the volume that somebody like McCaffrey gets.
Yeah, I actually consider myself pretty lucky. I've never had a number 1 overall pick in fantasy, so I've never had the conundrum of, do I pick CMC? Because he's burned quite a few people the past 2 years. So I think he gets moved this offseason. I think the Panthers know that they probably could get a decent amount for him. Because I forget the guy who played for him this year, but I mean, he did all right. And
Chuba
I
Hubbard.
think they have, yeah, Chuba. And I was like, I think they might move away from him just to try and get some pieces to help out. You know, if Sam Darnold's the guy going forward, try and help get some more pieces around him. So